Warning, this content may be disturbing to some audiences. Subscribe. If you dare. We don't sleep in the same room anymore and barely speak. Hey everybody, welcome to ANECDOSED. People ask Reddit. How do you know when you're in an unhealthy relationship and it's time to walk away? Number 1. Commenter. I feel this is different for everyone, but for me it was when I lost the will to bring up any of my own concerns or feelings because it wasn't worth the struggle. I just kept my mouth shut and dealt, because I hated the lengthy speeches and the way my ex would twist my thoughts and emotions around, which made me feel insane and doubt myself. In a nutshell, when I stopped advocating for myself in order to keep the peace, and when I was relieved to not be in the presence of my ex and actively avoided him, that's when I realized that the relationship had become far too unhealthy. Person B. I agree. I've had 2 relationships where I had to keep every concern to myself because if I spoke up I'd be called crazy, or worse, blatantly ignored. Luckily being ignored gives you plenty of time to think and realize it's not worth the stress and anxiety of constantly doubting yourself. Number 2. Commenter. My first relationship. I let it go on for much longer than it should have. In hindsight, I think I knew at the 3-month point that this guy wasn't good for me, and I ignored my gut feelings to try and make it work for another 3 years. Once we were through our honeymoon phase of the relationship, he would randomly ignore me. At first it was a day or 2, then it became 3 to 4 days, and then it became a week or 2 and sometimes even longer. He would let his phone ring and ring and ring, and never answer my calls. He would pick up the phone if it was anybody other than me. I would bring it up with him and try to understand why he would do this kind of shit to me, and he never gave me an explanation. He flat out ignored me. He told me I was crazy and that he just needed space. Did I act like a crazy girlfriend? No, I don't think so, not until he would ignore me and the cycle would start over. I would try to address the issues, and any time I would try, he would shut me out until he got over it. We never fought. We never yelled at each other. He would just not answer my calls randomly. Mind you, the moment he ignored the first 2 calls, I wouldn't call him again until a week later. If he kept ignoring them, then I wouldn't call for another week. I felt trapped and alone. I couldn't understand why he would randomly choose to ignore me. After 3 years of no explanations and overall being ignored for anything and everything, I checked out of the relationship. If your current so ignores your concerns and ignores you in general, it's unhealthy. It destroyed my self-confidence and it made me never want to communicate any concerns with my future so's. If you feel trapped and that your partner isn't listening to you, please just leave. Person B. My situation is a lot like that. Anytime that I voice any concern, even if it is something small, it's like he punishes me and will blatantly ignore me. Sometimes it goes on for full weeks, or more, and even if I ask him direct questions he refuses to say anything at all until he gets over it. I've never felt so alone and trapped than when he ignores me like this. Number 3. Commenter. When you stop being you, and start being the person your so wants you to be. Person B. Or when you sense you're trying to change you instead of helping you be the best version of the real you that you can be. Number 4. Well, a relationship doesn't need to get to the point where it is unhealthy for someone to want to leave, and be justified in doing so. I think what you're asking is, when is it just a rough patch any long-term relationship goes through, and when is it really a sign that things are over? I think when someone gets to the point when they are asking themselves this question, they need to reflect on the following points. How much of their desire to stay with this person is about A. Being afraid of being single and just getting into new habits, B. What other people would think if things break up, and C. Anxiety about the blowback from breaking up with that person, i.e. how angry/crazy/destructive that person will be to you or themselves. These are obviously not good reasons to stay, but I think they tip the balance for a lot of people to remain. After this, think about it the other way. What made you fall in love with this person and think you could have a life together? Are those characteristics, behaviors, lifestyles, and goals still there? If they still are in both of you, and you are not staying in the relationship for any of the bad reasons mentioned above, then I think the relationship really deserves the best try you've got to keep it going. Sometimes this means doing some hard work to get through the accumulated plaque of small resentments, disappointments, and miscommunications that build up over time. This is not easy, and it didn't happen overnight, so it will take a lot more than one talk, or even a few of them, to get through. But little that is worthwhile in this life comes easily. Number 5. Commenter. I was in a relationship where my so showed very little affection towards me. I thought that she was the most wonderful person in the world, but it was pretty clear that she didn't feel nearly the same way. I would always question whether she still loved me, especially when I wasn't with her. I would often confront her and she would deny it. I would convince myself that I was just being ridiculous. I guess the most unhealthy part of the relationship was that I was always questioning whether it was working out, and mentally, it was tearing me apart. Eventually, after about a month where we hardly had any contact, I decided to break it off and felt much better. Not knowing whether your so cares really sucks, and even having the knowledge that they stopped loving you is better than that. Person B. I went through this. Exactly. My ex-boyfriend didn't show me any affection. He barely talked to me, and if he did, it wasn't ever really about anything that regarded me. I was also sure we were constantly on the last leg of the relationship, and it ate away at my emotions until I just wasn't available to him anymore because of it. Number 6. The best way I can describe it is by adding together, IMO, the best answers ITT so far. When you're equally miserable next to them as you are away from them. When you spend more time trying to figure out how to fix it than enjoying it. If this is the case, you need to determine if it's worth it to stay. If you're lonely even when you're next to them, it's time to cut your losses. When you stop being you, and start being the person your so wants you to be. When you have to start justifying your relationship to friends and family, it's time to sit down and start weighing the pros and cons. When you realize you are sacrificing your own happiness. It was when I lost the will to bring up any of my own concerns or feelings because it wasn't worth the struggle. I just kept my mouth shut and dealt, because I hated the lengthy speeches and the way my ex would twist my thoughts and emotions around, which made me feel insane and doubt myself. In a nutshell, when I stopped advocating for myself in order to keep the peace, and when I was relieved to not be in the presence of my ex and actively avoided him, that's when I realized that the relationship had become far too unhealthy. Add these up and you have my last relationship. And boy was it time to walk away. Number 7. My fiancé and I went through a really rough patch, where I ended up leaving because I felt he was emotionally abusive. After I left, we found out that the basis for his problem was he was unknowingly addicted to his medication and suffering withdrawal, which is perpetuating his volatile attitude. He decided to try again. It's tough, but he's coming off the drugs and is much better and different than before. In the end, you have to decide what is best for you, to be happy. Number 8. Commenter, do they shut down your attempts to communicate? Do they belittle or minimize things you are unhappy with? Do they try to convince you things they did are your fault? Is the love, security, comfort, and routine you feel with them worth it? Are both partners contributing more or less equally or in a fair way that works for both partners on things like chores, money, childcare, and work/home life? If your best friend/sibling/cousin described your type of relationship and asked for your advice on staying or going, what would you tell them? If there are issues from them/you/everybody, are they willing to work on them with you or on their own? Do they value you, or for what you do for them? If they are rude to wait staff/cashiers/maids/etc., they will treat you the same way. Are they physically, mentally, verbally, or emotionally manipulative or abusive? If any of the above feel true, then that could be a bad sign. If multiple are true, it's probably a very bad sign. The good news is you can end a relationship at any time you choose, without needing a reason or event. If you are in an abusive relationship, there are tons of resources for help. Leaving may be extremely hard, but so very, very worthwhile. I guarantee there are healthy people out there who won't abuse you. Person B. I'm pretty pro relationships. I do know they take a lot of work and you have a lot invested in it. You are the only one who can decide what to do about your relationship. However, you can't ever change the other person. You can only change you. If you communicate clearly that things need to change, he needs to either start changing, or decide to continue on the way things are going. Anyway, I'm not trying to lecture you. I do wish you the best of luck. But I firmly believe people deserve great relationships, and this one sounds so-so. And leaving can be terribly hard and scary and involve all sorts of changes. Number 9. Ask yourself this. If I was single, yet still knowing what I know about him or how now, would I still voluntarily ask this person out on a date? Because a lot of people stay in a relationship out of convenience or fear of being single. This question eliminates it. Number 10. Commenter, no, we don't have kids, but a house, pets, joint finances, etc. However, we don't sleep in the same room anymore and barely speak. It's hard to know whether it's regular relationship work that we're just not putting in enough effort or whether it's just not right. Person B. I was in the same exact situation 2 years ago. Finally had the courage to leave. Took a day off and separated all of the accounts. Had a friend help me move out. I have never felt happier. It's worth it. You deserve to be happy. Don't let this drag on. Person C. These sound more like symptoms of an underlying problem than just a problem in and of itself, i.e., why you're not talking/sleeping with each other is the real issue at hand. Are the sleeping arrangements/silent spells prompted by arguments, perhaps frequently about the same or similar topics? Or is it just a may, i.e., don't feel like putting in the effort, situation? Long-term relationships can be vulnerable to ruts on occasion. Finding and exploring a new, shared interest might help if that's the case. In any event, given the shared finances and pets, I would suggest looking into couples counseling. You both felt invested enough in one another's future to do those two things jointly. If it doesn't pan out afterward, then at least you can walk away knowing it didn't work for lack of trying. Number 11. My girlfriend had been abusing me for over a year. Both verbally and physically. I didn't do anything because I try to be a nice person and I thought she would change. As of 2 days ago, I am free of her and don't have to worry about bruises and bleeding anymore. My shin is still effed up though. F girl. I realized it was time to go when she said I should just learn to deal with it. Number 12. If you're happier away from them than you are when you're with them. If they go somewhere by themselves and you feel relieved to see them go and do not look forward to their return. If you have to make it work versus just working. If you find yourself wishing you had never met them. If you catch yourself agreeing with them even if you disagree or swallowing your own feelings just to avoid another argument. If you start changing yourself to be who they want you to be, versus them loving you for who you are. Number 13. Just got out of a 10 years plus relationship that was toxic for both of us. Red flags, they dislike your family, all your friends. All of them. Without just cause. They limit your time with the above. They limit your sleep, micromanage your life. They will give up some control to make it seem like they are doing you a favor, but will make you feel guilty for it. They tell you to change everything about you, to mold you into something they want as their ideal, and they are not happy with the person you are to begin with. Your world suddenly becomes a tiny little closed-off room, your self-esteem crumbles and you silently regret each morning that you wake up. Frown. That was a year ago. Time heals all wounds and I'm with someone who is patient, kind and very understanding. Number 14. Everyone has their individual breaking point. Even in abusive relationships, both partners are fulfilling some need in themselves to be a party to it. The abuser is filling a need and unfortunately the one being abused is also. If someone taking abuse can gain some self-esteem and confidence, then the relationship will not work for them anymore. Make sure to share your personal story in the comments below and have the opportunity to be featured in a future video. Also, if you like these topics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to continue seeing more content like this every day. See you next time.